So, what if you could literally upgrade your thinking? I mean, really change the hardware of your brain? Well, today we're diving into exactly that, the powerful mental frameworks from the legendary investor Charlie Munger. And trust me, this isn't some dry academic theory. This is about building a better brain, one practical tool at a time.
All right, let's jump right in. We're going to start with a really powerful analogy that, well, it gets right to the heart of a huge problem in how we all think. It's a kind of cognitive trap that Charlie Munger saw as one of the biggest, most common roadblocks to getting smarter.
You've probably heard this one before, and it just nails it. We all have this tendency, right? We grab the one tool we know best, our little area of expertise, and suddenly everything starts to look the same. We're not seeing the world as it actually is. Nope, we're seeing a version of the world that just so happens to fit our one single model. We're basically torturing reality to make it fit. And here's the kicker. This has a real cost. Munger's point is that ignorance isn't free, not at all. We are constantly, day in and day out, paying a price for the thinking tools we don't have. We pay for it with bad decisions, with terrible judgments, with opportunities that just fly right by us. You might not see the price tag, but believe me, it is very, very real. Okay, so if having just a hammer is the problem, what's the fix? Well, Munger's big idea wasn't to go out and find a shinier, better hammer. No way. The solution is to build an entire toolbox, a whole collection of tools he called a latticework of mental models. And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you've got that rigid, one-track mind of the hammer guy. But on the other, you've got the Swiss Army knife approach. Suddenly, you're flexible. You can actually see the problem for what it is, and then you just pull out the right tool for the job. The key word here, options. You have options. So what even is a mental model? It sounds complicated, but it's not. Think of it as just a tool for your thinking toolbox. It's a big, powerful idea from a major field of study, like supply and demand from economics or natural selection from biology. These are frameworks that help you make sense of all the chaos out there. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. Do I have to become an expert in everything? And look, that sounds completely overwhelming. But here's the good news. Munger said you absolutely don't. He figured that if you can really master, say, 80 to 90 of these really big fundamental ideas from different fields, that's enough. That's enough to become genuinely worldwide. So, let's make this a little more concrete. We're going to walk through 3 really powerful but also really different models that you can pretty much add to your toolbox starting today. These examples are going to show you just how practical and honestly how effective this way of thinking can be. All right, tool number 1 is called inversion. And this one, it flips problem solving completely on its head. See, most of us, we're trained to think forward. We ask ourselves, okay, how can I achieve success? But inversion makes you ask the total opposite. What would absolutely guarantee failure? And this quote from Munger just illustrates it perfectly. You see, it's often way, way easier to figure out what will destroy you and then just avoid it than it is to chart some perfect path to success. The goal here isn't to be a genius. It's to consistently, reliably, not be an idiot. So how does this actually work in real life? Let's take an example. Say you want a great marriage. Okay, instead of listing all the things you should do, invert the problem. What would guarantee a terrible marriage? Well, you could be unreliable, totally selfish, never listen, right? Once you have that list of what not to do, the path to a good marriage suddenly becomes incredibly clear. Okay, on to tool number 2. This one is called the circle of competence. And really, it's about something we could all probably use a bit more of, and that's intellectual humility. It's all about knowing what you know and, maybe more importantly, knowing what you don't know. And this quote from IBM's founder is fantastic. This isn't about being falsely modest, It's a massive strategic advantage. The key thing isn't how big your circle of knowledge is. What really matters is how well you know the edges of that circle. Real wisdom isn't knowing everything. It's knowing with absolute clarity the difference between I know this and I'm just guessing. So this is a question you've got to ask yourself before making any big decision. I mean, in investing, in your career, in life, what is actually inside your circle of competence? Where do you have a real, genuine edge? And just as important, what's outside it? Because the best results, they almost always come from playing where you're strong and being incredibly careful everywhere else. All right, our third and final example for today. This is a model that Munger basically called a superpower. Why?
because it explains a huge chunk of human behavior. It's a simple idea, but it is so, so profound. People do what they are paid to do, what they are incentivized to do. And Benjamin Franklin, of course, just hit the nail on the head here. Look, you can appeal to people's logic, you can talk about morality until you're blue in the face, but if you really want to predict how someone's going to act, or if you want to influence them, you have to understand their incentives. You have to ask the question, what's in it for them? This little story about FedEx is the classic example, and it just shows the unbelievable, almost magical power of getting incentives right. So FedEx had this problem. Their late-night sorting was super slow. They tried everything. Pep talks, threats, you name it. Nothing worked. Then they made one simple change. They stopped paying workers by the hour and started paying them for the whole shift. As soon as the work was done, they could go home. And just like that, overnight, the problem vanished. So, we've talked about these individual tools, right? Inversion, circle of competence, incentives. But here's where the real magic happens. The true payoff, what Munger called the bingo moment, is when several of these different models all point in the exact same direction. Now, this isn't a typo on the slide. It's not a math error. It's a picture of what Munger called the Lollapalooza effect. It's when you get a crazy, nonlinear result. The outcome isn't just a little better. It is way, way more powerful than all the individual pieces added up. And honestly, this is the ultimate goal of the whole system. Just imagine you're looking at a problem, and a model from psychology, plus one from economics, and another one from, say, biology, they all point to the exact same conclusion. That's when you can have some real confidence in what you're thinking. That's when you get those explosive, game-changing results. Which brings us right back to where we started. You have a hammer. Now what? The journey to becoming a clear thinker, to getting worldly wisdom, it isn't about finding the one perfect hammer. It's about a lifelong commitment. A commitment to patiently building out your mental toolbox, to always be adding new models, and learning to finally see the world not as just a bunch of nails, but as the complex, fascinating, and incredible system that it truly is.